device over at supertalktv.com. And if you take your browser there, you see I'm not alone. Joining me in the studio is Mr. Justin Bell. He is attending the prestigious Manhattan School of Music in New York City. He leaves on Monday to further his graduate studies in opera. And I am so grateful that one of our listeners, David, if you're listening, thank you, connected us right before you fly out to the Big Apple. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
I'm so excited for you. I think anytime someone gets that opportunity to chase their dreams or further their talents in a certain area, it's always cool. And I have to admit, you don't hear of a whole lot of people still going to school to study opera, but yet that's still a thing, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the opera industry is alive and well, and it's becoming even more diverse day by day, and so it's a really exciting thing to be a part of.
Okay, so I've got to know your opera story. So take us back. I don't know when it starts for you, Justin. Was it just singing first, or did you tell us, when did you first connect with opera?
Yeah, so I think, opera is really something that is a universal art, and it really combines all the arts in a lot of ways, because there is the orchestra, there are the sets, which then combines the visual artists as well. There are dancers and so many elements. And so I think really it's a more artistic story that in elementary school, my principal at Davis Magnet, Dr. Jane Everly, used to invite me to her office to write poetry for her. And she would frame those poems and put it in her office. And she was the first one to encourage me, as well as my gifted teachers in the gifted program, to express anything. And so then she pushed me to be a part of Ed Said on Mississippi Public Broadcasting. And so I was on there at 9 years old. And then the next summer, I got to go to New Stage Theater, and I did that for the next 5 years. And I performed in their summer camp shows and a couple of their professional productions. And then I got to high school and was a part of the choir. And we got to travel and perform all over the country, and even in Italy my senior year. And by that point, I was like, okay, this music thing is really spectacular. Yeah. I can connect with people internationally. And it's just something so special about it, about hearing beautiful music, and that God gave you the ability to create that sound that is just like nothing else. And so I made the decision to study music in college. And so at USM, at the University of Southern Mississippi.
To the top.
That's right. I studied, I did a double major actually, both in a Bachelor of Music Education and Choral Pedagogy, and a Bachelor of Music in Voice Performance. And while I was there, I discovered even more this beloved form of opera, and I would watch every video, read every article, and every performance I could attend in both the Jackson area and elsewhere. It was just mystifying for me to just fall in love with all of it.
So I knew I liked you for a reason, but I didn't know why. And now I know, too. So Ed Said, I'm the registered dietitian for the show and help Ed with all of his health and wellness tips that he raps about. I had no idea. And then I'm a USM graduate. So look at us go. So I think that's really cool. And I think it goes to show, it goes back to you having extraordinary educators who gave you the opportunity to just express yourself. I don't want folks to miss that.
Oh, yeah.
You never know where that story or where those doors opening and encouraging a child just to be creative can sort of lead them, and then fostering them with space and encouragement to sort of do it. Do you remember the first time, Justin, that you opened your mouth and opera came? And I don't know, I mean, if that's the right terminology. I mean, when you say sing, I mean, you think of singing in the choir or singing at church or something, but even in those traditional settings where a lot of kids get their first, I guess, opportunity to sing, it's not classical music. It's not opera. So when was your first, let me try? Was it in the shower?
Yeah, I did definitely grow up singing at church at New Horizon Church in Jackson. And so I did a lot of solos there. And honestly, of course, the style is different. But it is so similar in a lot of ways, of the passion of telling stories. That it's a collaborative effort. I think church and opera are very similar. And a lot of famous opera singers grew up in church and did the same thing. And singing in the choir as well. Again, a different style, but it is telling stories and sharing music with people. But I think my first experimentation with it was definitely watching videos in the shower and just singing my heart out. And my mom in the other room like, please.
Because you can't half... You know what?
No, you
opera.
Can't.
It's right. You can't just twinkle, twinkle, little star under your breath. I mean, you're going for it to make it, with confidence and don't hold back kind of kind of thing.
That's right. But I guess my first opportunity, you see what I did there?
I like it.
Was in college when I got to be in my first opera production ever. It was The Elixir of Love, and that was my freshman year. And I really had no idea exactly the whole format of things. I just knew I was in love with it. And then I went on to, I got a chance to work at the Glimmer Glass Festival in New York in summer 2021. And just this past summer, I was at Des Moines Metro Opera in Iowa as well. And so every kind of instance is just more exposure and more connection to beautiful artists and inspiration for my own career.
From a career standpoint, how does this work? Because normally when you think of opera, it's usually a solo act, right? Like when you think of dance or theater, there could be multiple people on the stage and you may be the lead, but then it could be backup, whatever. But usually with opera, and this is my limited knowledge, you have the one person that stands in the middle with the beautiful music and then goes for it, right? Like is it kind of like a solo act, or is there more opportunities to be a part of other shows or other things?
Oh my God, I could talk about this for hours, of course. But so just like in any genre, right? Because even if you look at like R&B or pop, there are still kind of subgenres, and so there are different kind of operas as well. There are operas from the bel canto period, which are generally your more like happier shows in general, and then the singing is generally a lot of fast lines and lots of high things. There are your more dramatic, longer operas like Wagner, Puccini, but throughout the opera there are scenes, so there are multiple people. There's the chorus there that kind of helps narrate things along, but there those solo acts that everybody really remembers. That's where the big pressure comes, I think, because those are the arias. And arias are basically sung monologues. And so that's generally when one of the lead characters, soprano, tenor, baritone, bass, mezzo-soprano, stand on stage and their character kind of testifies about whatever it is on their heart at that moment. And so that's when it's just them and the orchestra and the conductor, and they're delivering a huge story. But it really is a collaborative effort.
I don't know why Pretty Woman comes to mind with the scene where she's at the opera and she starts to cry in her pretty dress. Well, but if you've never been, and I'll have to say, full disclosure, I've seen but never and heard but never been to one, I feel like it would be an emotional event when done right.
Yes, it is. And
if you allow yourself the space to enjoy it correctly.
One thing that a lot of people don't know is that opera singers are not amplified. In other art forms, everybody has a microphone, of course. And if we're singing opera outside, then of course there'll be microphones because the outside doesn't lend itself. But opera is not amplified traditionally. They're not wearing microphones. That huge, beautiful sound you hear that cuts through the room is all them. It's extremely athletic. And my first experience singing opera live, which is actually through Opera Mississippi at Thalia Mar Hall, I remember the soprano singing, and her voice just cut into my ears. It felt like she was right there just tickling me in my ear. And that's how close and emotional and surreal of an experience it is. I mean, it's really something powerful for a voice to do something like that.
So now you're headed to the Manhattan School of Music in New York. What will you be studying there? How did that next step come about?
Yeah, so, oh my gosh, it is a long process. I mean, unlike other graduate programs that maybe there's a few months that you are preparing and things, you really prepare for an entire year, if not before that, because you have to contact voice teachers and do sample lessons to see if you all even are compatible. You have to, of course, submit your application. And a lot of people don't know that you do a pre-screening part of your application where you submit videos for even the chance to audition. So when you get an audition, even that is an accomplishment. But then you go and audition, and of course you hopefully are accepted, and they have to give you scholarship offers and assign you a voice teacher that hopefully you're compatible with as well. So there's a long process, lots of flights, lots of applications, lots of negotiating. But then once you're there, I'm headed to study a Master of Music and Voice Performance at one of the top conservatories. And so once I'm there, my schedule will be very packed with classes in Italian, German, French, English diction.
Good luck with that.
Thank you. And we do sing in all those languages, as well as, of course, music history courses, further theory courses, but loads and loads of rehearsals, opera scenes, opera productions, solo opera recitals that I'll be performing as well. And so it'll be lots of singing every single day. But again, it's an athletic art, and so you're training like an athlete to go out on that stage professionally.
And we may get a chance to hear Justin. We will get a chance to hear Justin sing coming up next here on Good Things. mobile device over at supertalktv.com, and I encourage you to head on over there, take your browser there. You'll get to see Justin Bell. He's attending the prestigious Manhattan School of Music in New York City. He leaves out on Monday. He's furthering his graduate studies in opera, and I convinced him to help share some of his chops today on good things. So Justin, what are you going to sing for us today?
Yes, thank you again. So I am going to sing something that's not from an opera, but it's from a song that we did in choir at Murrah High School. It's called The Prayer of St. Francis, and I recently offered this as a closer of my recital, Ode to Joy, a farewell concert that I did this past weekend. And it's really meaningful to me because of the message.
All righty, there you go. Justin Bell.
Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, thy pardon, Lord. Where there is sadness, let there be joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console.
Wow. Yeah, that's not just everyday singing, Justin. That was absolutely beautiful. You can have a seat again. You can pull that mic back down, too, and get yourself comfortable. Man, I can't imagine having that kind of talent, but I can also see whenever you're able to do something like that, having the passion to want to learn more and further your career or sort of your education in that. So when you get your degree, once everything's done, because you will master it and do, is it 1 year or 2 years there in Manhattan?
It's a two-year degree, yeah.
So when you graduate, dream big. What's the big audacious goal? Where does Justin Bell hope to see himself 5-10 years?
Yeah, so at this point in graduate school, I mean, you are really preparing. It's a pre-professional level. And so at that point, the plan is to be employed in an opera house. I'm considered a young artist at this age. And so most singers at my age will do, after they finish their master's, a resident young artist program. An opera house, so that might be at Washington National Opera, that might be at Opera Philadelphia, Pittsburgh Opera, and you're there all year long, and it's basically like an apprenticeship, and you're performing on stage, you're doing coachings as well, and continuing your development, but also performing, and so you also might do concerts and recitals and other outreach things at the same time.
What's considered like the Super Bowl of opera experiences? Like, I know the Super Bowl is once a year, but I'm thinking like in terms of stages, where if you make it to that stage and you get the opportunity to perform there, what's considered like the highlight?
Oh my God. In the United States, the Metropolitan Opera is the house that everyone wants to get to and where everyone wants to sing. I mean, it is one of the most historical stages. It is the largest opera house in the world, actually, I think. And it is where a lot of people become gigantically known because it's a huge opera house. And I got the chance to finally go there for the first time when I went and did my auditions for Manhattan School of Music. And it's like nothing else. But it is also one of the biggest pressures because it is just you on the world's biggest stage. But one day I'll be there.
One day you definitely will be there. Do you look to do albums, or is it more like shows and concerts?
Yeah,
does that tie into sort of your traditional artist realm?
Absolutely. But I think that what a lot of artists today are realizing is that none of us want to be just traditional anymore. I think that all of us want to impact communities. We want to continue to branch out because we've been given a unique gift, and I think it can really minister to anyone. I know many opera singers, and one in particular who's a mentor of mine, Denise Graves, who tells me that her favorite performances, get this, were in prisons. She went to
Wow.
prisons and sung for people, and these are people that maybe society has cast out or have looked down upon, but she still felt that they had something that they could offer to the world, and they should deserve to be inspired too. And she went there, and she sung for prisons. And another great mentor of mine, who's another legend in the opera world, is Simon Estes, and he did a huge fundraiser for children in Africa years ago, where he helped to raise money for malaria to help get treatments for those children there. And he raised, I think, over $500,000 through concerts that he held and albums that he sold, and he donated all of it to the United Nations. And so I think that those kind of things, that we can tell stories both on stage and heal hearts, like doctors heal hearts in the operating room. I think that we heal souls in the performance area.
Music can definitely do that. And you think, and it also shows when you think of prisoners, you sort of think sometimes of hardened people or, cut off emotionally, but hearing the right music or hearing the whatever, it can move, there's still something stirring in there that can be moved to tears. Thinking about just Mississippi and the opportunities for kids who may be singing opera in the shower. I don't know. If we have someone listening, though, that, their kid is, awkwardly into it, not awkwardly, it's not the right word, but just curious about it, or they don't know what to do with it. I mean, where would you say to help foster or encourage a love of opera or a love of, I guess, the sort of classical singing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't necessarily fault you for saying awkwardly, because it takes a person with guts to really do this. I mean, you are on call and on pressure all the time. So kudos to anybody there who's interested. But I think that the best place to start as a young singer, because I'm still considered at the very beginning.
How old are you?
I'm 22. And so for opera singers, a lot of people consider 30, 35 old, but for opera singers, that's when our prime is.
Is it to do with the maturing of your vocal cords and sort of breath and all of that?
You continue to train, but also physiologically, the kind of demands that it requires of your body. Again, I said it's very athletic. Your body continues to form and to mature all the way through that time. So I would say to anyone who's interested, listen as much as you can, go to everything you can, read all the books, definitely learn as many languages as you can, and just associate your ear with that. Practice on your piano, because a lot of times you're teaching yourself your own music. But be patient is more about it. In the opera world, we always say that the process is more important than the outcome, because in the practice room, that's where you make your mistakes. That's where you figure out what works and what doesn't, and that's where you continue to grow. And that's also where you cry and scream and are frustrated. But that process is what makes you better, and that's what allows your heart and your voice to be open on stage to provide to people there.
Now, besides going to school, which I know that's going to take up all your time, but you're going to have to cut out a little bit of time just to be a New Yorker for a minute,
that's
or a
right,
Mississippian in New York. What are you most looking forward to seeing, doing?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, when I visited, so the crazy thing is I've only been in New York 3 times ever at this point. 2 times I was there singing. I did a concert at Carnegie Hall with the USM Southern Chorale, and then I did a performance with Murrah at St. Bartholomew's Temple, and then I went there to audition a couple of months ago. Only 3 times, and for me now to live there is like really surreal to think about. But I think I'm just interested in just seeing everything that's there to offer and being in the place where the arts are really, really happening. My school is right there near Broadway. The Metropolitan Opera is about 20 minutes away. And interacting with so many artists. Yeah.
So I had a friend who went to New York for a friend's 50th birthday. They ended up at a place on the Boulevard, is the name of the restaurant in Harlem, and they found out that the owner and chef there is from Natchez, Mississippi. So if you want a full circle moment, go travel from Mississippi to live in Manhattan to go eat in Harlem to get a taste of Mississippi. She said the shrimp and grits were on point.
I'll do a little scavenger hunt, and I'll let you know.
You have to do that. And two, if someone wants to help support your efforts, because I know it's a big commitment financially and all the things to make this dream come true. How can they stick with you or do that, Justin?
Oh, absolutely. To put it in perspective, tuition at Manhattan School of Music for 1 year is $52,000. And between that and living costs in New York, it's estimated that a person should account for, between scholarships and elsewhere, about $73,000 for 1 year. So for me to have the opportunity to go, I'm so grateful. But for people to reach out if they'd like to donate, there's a GoFundMe online. They can search Support Justin's Opera Studies, Mississippi to NYC, Support Justin's Opera Studies on GoFundMe.com. And if you all follow me on Facebook or Instagram or anything, then please feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to talk to you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And we're wishing you all the best. And I'm going to keep up with you because now we know you win. And so you'll have to remember the little people when you make it to all the big stages and check back in with us. But best of luck, Justin. Thank you. And you guys stick with us to get more.